In this video, we're going to look at a high time frame trade example, and this is going to be a GBP USD reversal trade. So as we know with our high time frame work, we want to be working on the weekly and daily to begin with, and this is where we build the overall direction for the trade before we then start moving on to the actual setups. So we're here on the daily on GBP USD, and all we can see here is a very clear uptrend coming to a close around these points here and shifting from higher highs and higher lows into lower lows and lower highs. So what we can see is a trend reversal taking place on the higher time frames. Now there have been a few opportunities to enter in the previous structure, so here and potentially here as well, but we have missed those. And what we can see is essentially this area here that we're trading into now in a downtrend, right? So we could picture this as a potential lower high. Now the reason we could do that is because if we look at structure, we have lower low, lower high, then we have an equal low, but then we have a lower high once again. The structure breaks through once again. Now we've pulled all the way back to this imbalanced supply area where we are now reacting. So if we quickly mark the structure out so you can understand everything I'm saying, we have first of all this first initial break, which is this as our lower low. That's the first indication of a trend shift. And then we have this secondary break, which is obviously pulling us down into a downtrend now. We've seen price pull in towards this supply area, and from there we've started to shift to the downside. Also, it looks like so far on the higher time frames here. So we now have an overall idea that we could sell GBP USD down. Now, where could we target? We've spoken about one of the easiest places to target is simply the low of the most recent structure move, and then we could potentially look to extend it. But for this example, because we have a lot of messy price action here, we will opt for this target. So that is our overall picture from the weekly and daily. In this instance, we just looked at the daily. Sometimes that's all you need to do. And now if we drop down to the 4-hour time frame, we can see a better picture of the current structure. So what we can do first of all is refine our zone down. I'm going to refine it to this blue candle here, which is the last candle before we started selling off. And we can see we had a nice couple of retests into that area before selling off. Now, the reason this is a reversal trade, as you'll have just seen on the daily, you may see this as a continuation, right? Because we're continuing in the daily trend. That is to a point true. Whether you're trading a reversal or continuation is time frame relative. But because we take most of the positions on the 4 and 1 hour for the high time frame work, I'll be using the 4 and 1 hour trends to mark out whether this is a reversal or continuation. And as we can see here, starting from this point upwards, the 4 hour here has been in an uptrend. Okay, we broke this structure point, and from there we formed continual higher highs and higher lows. Only after hitting the supply have we started to break that structure. And if we go to the hourly now, we can mark out what the trend is currently doing and why it is that we're looking for a potential shift from up to down. So we have a very clear trend running to this point. Once we retested supply, we can see here that we went from higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low to equal high and then lower lows. And the market from there has started selling off. So if we grab this tool like that, draw that across, this is our first structural break. We can actually see here on the hourly time frame that there was already a setup provided. We have a supply zone here, which was retested directly to the midpoint before a large sell-off in price. Now, because we only had a very minor break here though, this may not be a position you would look to take. I personally would prefer to see a confirmed breakdown in the structure, which is obviously going to be signified by a secondary break. So we have the first break, this being the lower low. When we get a second break like this that we can currently see happening, that is what's going to give us a lot of confidence to take a powerful movement on GBP USD. Because we can see here, the trend has clearly shifted now from higher highs into not only one lower low, but one lower low, one lower high, and then a second lower low. So looking towards the areas of interest then, the areas of interest we have is this supply zone here, but we can actually see that this has been retested at this wick. So for me, I'm not too sure about this one because we do have a large imbalance leading us into this high interest supply up here as well. Now, just due to how imbalanced this is and how clear it is that we could pull into this point, paired with the fact that we have seen this little wick retest here, if we go to the 30-minute, I'm sure you will see, yep, the midpoint of this zone, so we can refine this down, has been retested there. Now, I'm not going to refine the extreme too much because we obviously do not know where price is going to reverse. But what we can do is wait for price to approach this area. If we get solid reversal confirmation here on the hourly, we could look for a trade. But if we don't, we could actually then look towards the extreme zone and see if we get confirmations there. So we get a little tap in here, get a wick down, no real significant shift of structure there. And now we've had a push to the upside. So this push should bring us into the extreme. Now, what do we know about hourly and above timeframes? If we're using risk entries, we are going to use them on the midpoint of the zone. So just as a risk entry idea, we could potentially go for a setup like this. Our target is pretty big, so I'll leave that off for now. But if we are going to be looking for a confirmation entry as well, we will be obviously monitoring the lower time frame structure now that we've entered this zone. If we go to the 15-minute, for example, we'll monitor the structure, see what it is that we're working with right here. Now here I can see the market has made a higher high, a higher low, a higher high, and is now making these equal lows. So I'm going to mark this higher low formation on here. And if we break through the structure point, now that we've hit this supply region, we could well be looking at a short possibility. So let's see what the market does. Alternatively, if we then pull up to the upside, we should be triggered in on our risk entry position, and we should be able to just ride that down. So now that we've seen this break, we can look towards the area that broke structure, which is this 15-minute zone here. Now, it does look like we've had a slight wick tap into that, but what I'm going to do is refine and see if there are any other high probability areas that could be good for shorts. Now here on the 10-minute, I can see that this is clearly the zone that broke structure, this blue candle here, before this large sell-off. It obviously first of all broke this substructure, and now it's broken the more significant structure as well. So what we could do at this point is put an order on at this level. We could put a stop loss above the high around 13 pips, and then we can target into that high time frame daily target that we were looking for. If we now allow the market to play out, we can see if we are going to get triggered in on this movement and if it's going to be successful. Now we have had a nice break of structure. The market has actually started to break down from that area that we were targeting for our entries. So hopefully we have been triggered in. Now this runs down very nicely towards the targets that we are anticipating. So just making sure that's lined up directly. Now for the targets, they are huge targets on the daily time frame, which could bring us some massive profits. Now you don't have to run this large targets. A lot of the time, maybe you will close early. It depends on what kind of trader you are. If you want to close before the weekend, for example, or just generally if you want to close out when you have profits that you're happy with. So let's see how these trades perform. We do also have that risk entry set, so if we get stopped out, there is an entry above as well. But this is a good confirmation way to get into a position. Now we are showing a little bit of sideways price action here. The good thing is, however, our stop is positioned above the wick. So even if we were to pull back, we would be good to go. Now for this position, we've started to break through some structure. We could potentially look to go break even now because we are running quite a healthy profit. At this point, I'd go ahead and remove the risk entry. I don't think that's going to come through. The high time frame trade here is executed very nicely using obviously the high time frames for the basis of the trade, the entry areas and the targets. And then we actually use the 10-minute to work out the best zone to sell from, set an order there, and now that's running in profit. So if we allow this position to play out, well, there's a large sell-off. By this point, we would 100% be break even. I don't think at this point we should push the stops too far into profit. Now, many people would already take this profit and be happy with that. And there's actually nothing wrong with that at all. Normally, I would say don't close profits early. But when you're running positions like the ones we can get, it doesn't actually matter if you close out at this level. For example, if you take 9R, no one's going to be mad, all right? You can cover a few losses with that. You can make enough profit to last you literally a month, especially on the high time frame trades where we have 1% risk. So there is no concern at all about taking profits like that. But at the bare minimum, trades should be completely break even here. And I don't think our trail stops too deep here because we do have a lot of imbalance. We could generally look to fill like this. And then when we hit that zone, we could then sell off potentially once again. So that's just an idea, but that is why I wouldn't manage my stops too far. Yeah, you could potentially take some partials here, and then you could wait for price to reapproach this zone and sell more if it happens, or you could just hold the trade break even and allow it to do its thing. So if we let price play out a little bit, we will see what it's doing. And as we see, the price makes a very large nosedive down into the profit region, right? So at this point, we would 100% have all of our stops move to this level if you hadn't already taken profits or taken partials. But you can see here we're approaching a 30R position, which is essentially a 30% position. Now, if we grab the timing tool just to show you, this is not going to be a fast trade, right? This is so far a 7-day trade, all right? So it's important you understand that because you should not expect to be in these positions for just a couple of hours. If you want to get these huge profits like this, you have to enter with scaled in entries and then just allow the trade to run and give it time. This is over one trading week. This is like 1.5 trading weeks here that we have to leave a trade running if we want to secure this size profit. And of course, it's not always going to work. Sometimes you'll get break even, but through your back testing and through your live performance after you've tested and watched these videos, you'll certainly start to get a good feel for the markets. So here we can see price is approaching this level. Now, a few opportunities here. We either would have had stop scale to this level, a dramatic, deep, aggressive scaling, which would have taken us around 22R, and we'd be out of the position now. Or if you were running break even, you could look to actually, finalize the trade by just holding the stops above these levels or at break even or whatever. And I also do see here quite a large potential for a reversal in this area, being the zone that broke structure. So there's potential even for a scaling on this position if price does reach that level. So just leaving the market to do its thing. Well, there we go. We've finalized the target now. We did not come through for the scaling, but we did actually get a little confirmation move there. So on the lower time frames, potentially you could have done that. So that's the whole process then from start to finish on a 30R position. Now let's have a look how long it took. I'm assuming about 10 days, 2 trading weeks. Yep, 12 days and 18 hours. So essentially 13 days. So you're looking at holding this for 2.5 trading weeks, or essentially 3 full real-time weeks to actually lock in a trade of this size. But as you can imagine, if you can lock in 30% in 3 weeks, that is immense, right? That's mega. That is very, very big trade. It's going to take some patience. It's going to take a lot of testing and practicing to get there. But the systems are now in place in your mind. I've showed you how to do this. Now all you have to do is follow through with the system and put your work in to test and practice. So that is the position broken down of a high time frame reversal trade. We use the daily, if we remember, to start off and find the overall reversal point. Then we scaled to the 4 hour and found here we had a bullish trend that was starting to reverse into bearish price action. Then we looked towards the 1 hour to find out the best place to sell from. And when we traded into that zone, we missed the risk entry, but we came through with a nice confirmation trade, which has now started to sell off and ran all the way to our targets 30R away. So you can see here, amazing potential, amazing possibilities. All you need is to build upon the skill set that I've taught you and then develop your patience and your discipline and put this into action. And I'll be looking forward to seeing how it goes. So that is the high time frame reversal trade. Now in the next video, we'll talk through a high time frame continuation trade, the more simple trade of the two, and that one is going to be on Euro USD. So I'll see you there.